my mom, who has been terrorizing me for the last 12 years of my life. Hey, I don't know if this is exactly an EP matter, but it is one that has affected the last 10 years of my life tremendously. Please delete the post, if not suitable to be posted in this subreddit. Sorry for any spelling and grammar mistakes, I am not a native speaker, yet I will try my best. Some background information. Before my mom gave birth to my older brother, she had a miscarriage, which traumatized her enormously to a point where she had to take some very strong antidepressants. To all of you unfamiliar with the effects of antidepressants on your body, they can make you sleep a lot, and some people, including my mom, are getting very heavy over the course of the years. Note that my family is quite wealthy, we are living in a huge house and have never had to worry about anything in life. I personally give a shit about money, yet it is kind of important later on. The story. When I was 12 years old, my mom stopped taking her antidepressants without consulting a doctor. It was around that time when she became seemingly more lethargic. She slept even more than in the past and became some annoying passive-aggressive BH. I was struggling with some severe weight issues at the time, I was fat AF, and began developing a severe inferiority complex. Every evening my whole family, me, my brother, my dad and my mom, were sitting downstairs in our living room, watching TV, talking about school, the usual family conversations, you get the point. Over the time my mom began talking me down on my weight problem. Being the fat woman she is, she was lying on the sofa, calling me fat and ugly and basically mocking on me. I was fucking devastated. It was a time where I was bullied severely at school, and it seemed like it didn't even stop when I was at home. I began locking myself down in my room, while my dad was arguing with my mom about how she is talking to her own son. I began developing a severe depression myself at the time, but until recently, when I finally moved out from my parents, I had no courage of consulting a doctor, being afraid my mom would mock on me for just trying to get attention. It was just due to my dad and my one best friend that I did not kill myself back then. I still remember the time before Christmas when I was 13 years old. We had one of those TV receivers that could record shows for you and make you forward the ads. My mom asked me to record one episode of The Big Bang Theory for her. So I set the timer to auto-record the show. Unfortunately, our receiver had some issues and did not record the last 2 minutes of the episode. So there we were, sitting on the sofa, laughing about the funny Sheldon Cooper, me being happy that my mom is having a good time, when suddenly the screen turned black. My mom fucking lost it. She began yelling at me for being an incompetent failure, that will never go to places in his life. I was crying. It was the day I lost my mother. It was the day I found out that my mom blamed me for being the reason her first unborn child had to die. This fucking killed me. Even today I wished I was never born. At the same time, my dad bought myself the most important present in my entire life. A mountain bike. He went on rides with me every time the weather was nice enough to go out. I finally had distance from my crazy mom and began enjoying the time on the bike. My mom, on the other hand, did not miss any opportunity to argue with me. Often after school, when I was learning or doing my homework, she would eventually come home by car and left me thinking, okay, here we go again. She would come in and start asking me questions like if I had already tidied up my room, removed the dust from the shelves, emptied out the dishwasher, basically waiting for me to say no, I haven't done so yet, to be entitled, throwing a tantrum at me for being a lazy person. Note that I had developed to become one of the best pupils at my school. I started losing it, too, shouting at my mom for not leaving me alone and always criticizing me for my behavior, while my brother can basically do whatever he wants to, without being yelled at a single fucking time in his life. One of her greatest moves she has ever done, I bet she had already done this or similar things several times before, was taking all my cleaned clothing from my room, putting it in the basement, waiting for me to come home just to yell at me for not respecting her work, and putting the freshly cleaned clothing in the basement just so she had to clean them again. Luckily my grandmother was around when she threw the clothing into the basement and called my mom out for her bullshit. Side note, this was like 2 weeks ago. I always had the suspicion she was playing such games with me, as I often got faced with stuff I have never done in my life, yet until recently nobody believed me, when saying I was innocent. In conclusion, my mum broke my nose once after I insisted on packing my suitcase for a school trip on my own, called my dad several times at work, lying at him to try and get me in trouble, called the family of my ex-girlfriend every time I was with her, telling me I needed to come home immediately, claiming my dad and her needed to talk with me, just to let me find out that my dad gave a shit and mostly did not know what was even going on. My girlfriend broke up with me, as she could not handle being around my mum one more second. Also, every time we go to visit relatives out of town, my mum waits for me to say something she doesn't like in order to justify her being mad, refusing to get into the vehicle, so we are late, and her being able to blame me in front of our relatives for being a bad son. Sometimes I even need to excuse myself to her for being so rude. I hate it. She even ruined my conferment of my final exams at school, where I graduated with highest honor, because she did not like the outfit I was wearing. It became the worst day of my life. My mum always thinks as soon as she clams down that she does never excuse herself to me if she is just buying expensive stuff for me. I got tons of designer clothing I do not even wear and other expensive stuff. Yet she does not seem to realize that she cannot buy respect from her son and could ever indemnify what she did to me with something as trivial as money. I would rather live in a family of poors, than being spoiled by a person that has never ever in your entire life told you that she is proud of you or loves you.